The twin sons of Belisar Prime bled crimson across the horizon, painting the wasteland in hues of fire and ash. Winds howled over the barren dunes, carrying whispers of forgotten gods and the stench of ancient blood. The desert was restless tonight, alive with energies that twisted reality itself. Beneath the shifting sands, a hidden coven of chaos cultists gathered in trembling anticipation. Their chants echoed through subterranean caverns, invoking names of power that no mortal throat was meant to utter. Symbols of the blood god burned into the rock walls, and pools of sacrificial blood shimmered under torchlight. They had felt something, a disturbance, a ripple in the warp unlike any they had sensed before. And then, the air itself tore apart. Reality split open with a sound like shattering glass, a rift of pure darkness yawning between dimensions. The cultists fell to their knees as the cavern trembled, dust cascading from the ceiling. Psychic screams pierced the warp, and a wave of heat rippled outward. From that blinding vortex, a figure emerged, his fall ending in a perfect, predatory crouch. Steam coiled from his skin as his black robes fluttered like the wings of a demon. Tattoos glowed faintly beneath the crimson hue of his flesh, and his horned head rose slowly, eyes burning yellow with unholy light. Darth Maul had arrived. He exhaled deeply, sensing this new realm with the instincts of a predator. The Force, his eternal companion, felt strange here. It was thicker, heavier, as if tainted by madness. It pulsed with raw hunger and violent emotion, unlike the structured energies of the galaxy he once knew. Strange, he muttered, his voice low and edged like a blade. The dark side is alive here, but twisted. He extended his senses, probing deeper into this alien power. The air vibrated with potential. The Force, no, something deeper, whispered through him, wild and untamed. It was intoxicating and dangerous. A distant echo of chanting caught his attention. Voices, many of them, rose from the tunnels nearby. The cultists had felt his arrival. To them, this horned stranger was a divine omen, a living avatar of their blood-soaked gods. Their faith turned instantly into worship and terror. Maul smiled faintly. Let them come. He ignited his double-bladed lightsaber, the red plasma hissing to life with its familiar crackling tone. The chamber filled with crimson light, casting demonic shadows across the ancient stone. Even here, in a world so alien, the weapon of the Sith hummed with deadly promise. Footsteps approached. The cultists had arrived. Maul deactivated his saber, letting darkness consume him once more. He melted into the shadows like a phantom, waiting as the robed figures poured into the chamber, clutching crude weapons and relics of bone. At their head was a hulking man, his skin marred by ritual scars and his eyes replaced by crude mechanical implants that glowed faintly red. His voice was guttural, distorted through vox augmentations. The signs were true, he growled. Something has come through the veil. Find it. The blood god demands tribute. The cultists fanned out, their torches flickering in the swirling dust. They searched the darkness, unaware that their quarry was already among them. Maul watched silently, his expression unreadable. They were weak, chaotic, undisciplined, but useful. If he was to survive and understand this strange universe, he would need information. One cultist strayed too close to his hiding place. With lightning speed, Maul's hand shot out, seizing the man's mouth and dragging him into the shadows. A single gesture, finger to lips, silenced any cry. The man's eyes widened in recognition and horror. Demon, he whispered through Maul's grip. The Sith tilted his head slightly, studying the trembling mortal. So, that was what they believed him to be, a demon from their infernal pantheon. He could use that. Take me to your leader, Maul commanded softly. His voice carried a resonance beyond mortal sound, a ripple of pure force compulsion. The cultist's eyes glazed over as he nodded obediently. The blood pit awaits, my lord, he murmured. The games begin at nightfall. Maul released him and followed without another word. They descended through winding tunnels that spiraled deeper into the planet's crust. The air grew thick with heat and the stench of sweat, oil, and blood. As they passed, other cultists fell to their knees in reverence, whispering praises to the Horned One. Maul allowed it. Let them believe. Fear was power, and he would wield it as he always had. At last, the tunnels opened into a vast underground coliseum. Thousands of zealots filled the bleachers, their bodies painted crimson, their voices rising in violent ecstasy. In the center lay the arena of skulls, a pit of sand darkened by generations of spilled blood. Chainswords roared as two enormous warriors clad in blood-red power armor battled below. Sparks and gore filled the air as their blades met in brutal rhythm. When one finally struck the killing blow, The crowd erupted into a chant that shook the very foundations of the cavern. Blood for the Blood God. Skulls for the Skull Throne. Maul watched, intrigued. There was a purity to their violence, raw, unfiltered passion. It reminded him of the Sith code. Through passion, I gain strength. He turned to his trembling guide. Who rules this place? The cultist bowed low. Lord Vrouse, master of the arena. He will wish to meet you. Maul's yellow eyes glowed brighter. Then let us not keep him waiting. As he followed the cultist toward the warlord's chamber, Maul felt it. The force here was changing. It pulsed, reacting to his presence. He had crossed into a world of chaos and gods, but the galaxy had no idea that a Sith Lord now walked among them. And he had no intention of serving any god. The path led Maul through corridors carved from blackened stone, walls slick with condensation and smeared with old blood. The further they descended, the louder the chants became, echoes of savage worship that pulsed like a heartbeat through the underground complex. When they emerged into a side chamber overlooking the arena, the full spectacle unfolded before him. The air was thick, hot, damp, alive with bloodlust. Torches burned in iron sconces, casting wild shadows across the bleachers where thousands screamed the same words over and over. Blood for the Blood God. Skulls for the Skull Throne. Maul observed with cold fascination. The Force, or whatever presence guided this place, vibrated violently, feeding off the emotion of the crowd. Rage, passion, death, it was the perfect storm of dark energy. Below, two warriors in blood-red armor clashed like titans. Their movements were brutal yet precise, mechanical limbs whirring as they struck with chain blades that tore the air apart with each swing. Every impact sent showers of sparks and gore into the cheering masses. When one finally fell, impaled through the chest, the victor raised his weapon and roared. The chant resumed with renewed fury, echoing like thunder through the cavern. Maul stood still, absorbing every detail. Discipline through madness, he murmured. Order through chaos. A contradiction, yet strangely familiar. The cultist at his side bowed his head. They fight for glory, my lord. To please the Blood God. To earn the favor of the World Eaters. World Eaters, Maul repeated softly. The name carried weight. Show me this lord of yours. The cultist guided him toward an arched entrance leading to the warlord's chamber. Two massive guards flanked the doors, their bodies augmented with metal and bone. They stepped aside immediately, sensing something more terrible than their master beyond them. Inside, the chamber reeked of iron and oil. A single throne, assembled from bones and twisted metal, stood at its center. Seated upon it was Lord Vrouse, a giant of a man, draped in torn remnants of ancient power armor. His skin was crisscrossed with scars, his left arm entirely mechanical, ending in talons capable of crushing steel. He leaned forward as Maul entered, one glowing mechanical eye narrowing. You bear no mark of the Blood God, Vrouse growled, voice distorted by vox implants. Yet you emerge from the warp. What manner of demon are you? Maul's yellow gaze cut through the gloom. I am no demon. I am something older. Something greater. Vrouse laughed, a harsh, metallic sound that reverberated through the chamber. Bold words for a stranger. Prove your worth. The arena awaits. A cold smile crept across Maul's face. As you wish. Moments later, he stood once more within the arena of skulls, the crowd howling his name, or what they believed it to be. The Horned One. The Horned One. Across from him stood his opponent, a monstrous brute known as Gra the Butcher, a mass of flesh, muscle, and crude cybernetics. He hefted a two-handed axe so heavy it would have crushed most men. His body was a patchwork of scars and metal grafts, and his single human eye gleamed with murderous devotion. The announcer's voice boomed from the arena walls. A new challenger approaches. The Horned One faces Gra the Butcher. Only one leaves alive. The crowd erupted. Maul lowered his stance, his mind focused, the force flowing through him in steady rhythm. His opponent bellowed and charged, the axe raised high for a killing blow. Maul waited until the last possible instant. Then, movement like lightning. He stepped aside with impossible grace. The axe struck only sand. Before Gra could recover, Maul extended a hand. The force surged outward, invisible and absolute. The brute was lifted from his feet and hurled backward with bone-crushing force, smashing into the stone wall. The crowd gasped, thousands silenced in awe. Maul walked toward his fallen opponent, expression unreadable. The butcher groaned, staggering to his feet. Which? He spat, blood pouring from his mouth. You know nothing of true power, Maul replied coldly. He raised his hand, closing it slowly. The force obeyed. There was a sharp crack, then silence. The butcher's body went limp, collapsing into the dirt. For a heartbeat, the entire arena was still. Then, as if released from a trance, the crowd exploded into wild chanting. Blood for the Blood God. Skulls for the Skull Throne. But now, another name slipped between the words, unspoken yet felt by all. Maul. The Sith Lord turned slowly, the crimson light of the torches reflecting off his skin. He had shown them power, real power, and they adored him for it. When he returned to Vrausa's chamber, even the warlord's mechanical eye flickered with something resembling respect. Impressive, Vraus admitted. Few possess such command of the warp. The Blood God favors slaughter by hand, yet even he cannot deny strength. I seek knowledge, Maul said simply, stepping closer. This world is unfamiliar. Tell me of it. The warlord gestured for him to sit. Then listen, Horned One. You stand within the Imperium of Man, an empire of 1,000,000 worlds, ruled by a corpse god upon a golden throne. His servants wage endless war against those who serve the true powers, Chaos, the gods of the warp. Vrausa's voice deepened, a reverent tremor beneath the distortion. The Blood God, the Lord of Rage, is among them. His chosen are the World Eaters, warriors who live only for battle. The Imperium calls us heretics. We call ourselves free. Maul listened in silence, his sharp mind piecing together the fragments. An empire fueled by fear, priests worshipping a dead emperor, and gods who drew power from human emotion. It was both alien and disturbingly familiar. When Vraus finally paused, Maul's gaze was cold and calculating. This Imperium sounds fragile. Ruled by faith, sustained by fear. It will fall, as all empires do. The warlord tilted his head. And what of you, Horned One? You claim no god. What do you serve? I serve nothing, Maul replied, his tone like steel. Not anymore. Vraus chuckled, metallic voice rumbling like thunder. Every soul serves something, even if it denies it. Perhaps the Blood God brought you here for a purpose. Maul offered no answer. Let the fool believe what he wished. That night, the warlord dismissed him with an order. Rest. Tomorrow brings more battles, and the arrival of the World Eaters themselves. Impress them, and perhaps even the gods will take notice. As Maul retired to his chamber, the chanting from the arena below still echoed in his mind, deep, rhythmic, endless. He sat cross-legged in the darkness, reaching out through the Force to this chaotic new world. The energy here was wild, raw emotion turned physical, war itself given voice. He could feel every life, every scream, every drop of blood spilled beneath the twin suns. Above it all, something vast stirred, a presence watching him from beyond mortal comprehension. A god of blood, a god of war. Maul's eyes opened slowly. Let them watch, he whispered. But I will bow to none. Dawn never truly came to Belisar Prime's underworld. The sun's light could not pierce the miles of sand and stone above the arena of skulls. Only the glow of torches, molten vents, and the perpetual fire of devotion illuminated the halls of the cult. Word of the Horned One's victory spread like wildfire. Every whisper that passed through the tunnels spoke of the red-skinned stranger who had slain Gra the Butcher with invisible power. Some said he was a demon sent by the Blood God. Others claimed he was a god himself. To Maul, it was all meaningless. Belief was a weapon, and he would wield it until it dulled. When he emerged from his quarters, the cultists fell to their knees. They offered him blood, trinkets, and the bodies of those they deemed unworthy. Their reverence was nauseating, but useful. Maul strode past them without a word, the air around him trembling faintly as the Force rippled outward. By midday, he stood once more in the center of the arena. The sand beneath his boots was still dark from the previous day's slaughter. But today's battle would be different. 5 opponents awaited him, each marked by mutation and the gifts of their gods. The crowd's anticipation was palpable, their chants swelling as the announcer's voice echoed through the chamber. Behold, the Horned One faces the blessed quintet, chosen of the Blood God, the decayed father, the trickster, and the serpent. Let blood flow. The roar that followed was deafening. The quintet advanced, each twisted by the warp in grotesque ways. A woman whose arms had become serrated bone blades. A hulking brute with mouths embedded across his torso. A sorcerer wreathed in blue fire. 2 others bearing mutations so severe they barely resembled humans. Maul stood motionless, eyes half closed. Then, with a single breath, his lightsaber ignited. The twin crimson blades snapped into existence, their hum slicing through the madness like a predator's snarl. Gasps rippled through the audience. No one had seen a weapon like it, energy pure, contained, and lethal. The sight transfixed them. Even the World Eaters observing from the shadows leaned forward. The first mutant rushed him, shrieking as her bone blades cut through the air. Maul moved like liquid shadow. One smooth motion, one single strike, and both her arms fell to the ground. The stench of scorched flesh filled the pit. Before her scream even ended, 2 more attackers lunged from opposite sides. Maul leapt impossibly high, twisting mid-air. They collided beneath him, tangled in their own momentum. He landed behind them, blades spinning in a deadly flourish that ended both lives in an instant. Only 2 remained. The brute hesitated, his many mouths drooling blood and bile as his primitive mind struggled between fear and rage. Maul extended a hand, pulling the creature through the air like a rag doll. The double-bladed saber pierced him clean through the chest. The body convulsed once, then fell silent. Now, only the sorcerer remained. Blue fire crackled around his body, warp fire licking at the air like living serpents. "You are not the only wielder of otherworldly power," he hissed, his voice echoing with layered tones. Flames surged from his hands, roaring toward Maul. The Sith raised his lightsaber, deflecting the torrent, but the fire wasn't like anything he had encountered. It bent reality itself, burning even through the Force. "You rely on borrowed strength," Maul said evenly, his voice low, his gaze unshaken. "I draw from my own." The sorcerer's grin widened as he unleashed another wave, the heat searing across the arena floor. But Maul did not retreat this time. He advanced, each step steady, controlled. He extended his hand, not to block, but to absorb. The blue fire coiled around him, feeding into his tattoos as if consumed by a void. Gasps erupted from the crowd as the warp flames vanished into Maul's palm. For a brief moment, even the gods must have paused to watch. Maul closed the distance between them with inhuman speed. His lightsaber flickered off. He wanted this kill to be personal. He seized the sorcerer by the throat, lifting him effortlessly from the ground. "Your god cannot save you," Maul whispered, his voice carrying across the entire arena. The sorcerer's eyes bulged, fingers clawing at Maul's wrist. A sharp twist, one clean motion, and his neck snapped with a sickening crack. The body fell, limp and silent. The arena exploded into thunderous cheers. Blood for the Blood God. Skulls for the Skull Throne. But again, something had changed. Their chants carried a new rhythm, his name woven within. Blood for the Horned One. Skulls for the Sith Lord. Maul deactivated his lightsaber and turned slowly toward the stands. Their worship didn't amuse him, it intrigued him. The energy of their adoration poured into the air, thick with emotion. He could feel it feeding the Force, feeding him. When he returned to Lord Vrausa's chambers, the warlord was not alone. Beside him stood a figure in blackened armor adorned with brass trim and the sigil of the World Eaters. His face was hidden beneath a hood, but the power emanating from him was unmistakable. "This is Apothecary Khordath," Vraus announced, his tone one of forced respect. "He serves the World Eaters and comes to witness our champion." The hooded figure lifted his head, revealing a face that had once been human, now fused with metal and scar tissue. One eye had been replaced with a whirring optical implant. His voice was deep and resonant, layered with something inhuman. "I have watched your battles," Khordath said. "Impressive. But strength in the arena means little. To earn Khorne's favor, you must face a true challenge." Maul tilted his head slightly. "Name it." "Executioner Grath," Khordath replied. "A former Imperial commissar turned champion of the Blood God. He has slain 300 in single combat, including 2 space marines." The apothecary's cybernetic eye glowed faintly. "Defeat him, and perhaps you will be found worthy." Maul's gaze hardened, the faintest trace of a smile curving his lips. "Then let him come." That night, in the silence of his quarters, Maul sat cross-legged and meditated. His mind extended beyond the limits of the chamber, reaching into the maelstrom that was this galaxy's spiritual dimension, the warp. It was unlike anything he had known. Chaotic, sentient, alive. And within that storm, something vast stirred, a consciousness of rage and slaughter, its presence brushing against his own. It felt him. It recognized the fury in him. Khorne, the Blood God. The connection was brief, but it sent a chill through Maul's veins. He had seen gods, spirits, and the Force itself, but this was different. The warp was not merely an energy field. It was alive, and it wanted him. Maul's eyes opened, glowing faintly in the darkness. "You can watch all you wish," he whispered. "But you will not command me." Outside, the drums of the arena began again, heralding the night's main event. The executioner awaited. The crowd roared for blood. And Darth Maul, once apprentice, once shadow, now the Horned One, rose to meet his next conquest. The arena of skulls pulsed like a living heart. Torches blazed. Drums thundered. Every cultist, every gladiator, every chaos warrior in the underworld had gathered to witness the event that promised to become legend. Even the walls seemed to tremble beneath the roar of thousands chanting in savage unison. Blood for the Blood God. Skulls for the Skull Throne. Darth Maul stepped through the gate, his black combat attire fluttering around him like a shadow come alive. His face, illuminated by the red firelight, bore the stillness of a predator before the strike. Every motion was deliberate, every step controlled. Across the arena stood his opponent, Executioner Grath, once an Imperial commissar, now a champion of Khorne. His armor bore the scars of countless wars, blackened carapace plates etched with crimson runes. His face was a tapestry of ritual scars, his grin wide and gleaming with madness. In one hand he held a power sword that crackled with volatile energy, in the other, a bolt pistol engraved with the 8-pointed star of chaos. He raised his weapon toward Maul and bellowed to the crowd, his voice echoing through the cavern. For the Blood God. For eternal war. Maul said nothing. He simply unclipped his lightsaber hilt and held it loosely by his side. The crowd fell into a tense silence. Then came the announcer's voice, booming like the voice of a god. The executioner faces the Horned One. A battle for the Blood God's favor begins. The ground vibrated beneath their feet as the crowd erupted once again. Grath did not attack immediately. He was a veteran, cunning and patient. He circled Maul slowly, pistol raised but not firing. He had studied this opponent's earlier battles. He knew the Horned One wielded strange powers. He would not underestimate him. I have killed beings from across the stars, Grath called, his tone mocking. Ox, Eldar, even Necrons. But you, what are you, Horned One? What world breeds your kind? Maul did not answer. His silence was the greater insult. He simply extended his hand. The force surged. Grath's pistol wrenched in his grip, almost tearing free, but the man's strength held. His armor's servos hissed as he resisted the telekinetic pull. His grin widened. Psychic tricks? I have faced witches before. He opened fire. The bolt pistol roared, launching mass-reactive rounds that screamed through the air. Maul's lightsaber ignited in a blur of crimson, deflecting the first round in a burst of smoke and sparks. The explosion echoed like thunder. These projectiles were unlike blaster bolts, heavy, physical, explosive. Maul adapted instantly, redirecting the next two shots and twisting his body to evade the others. The detonations tore gouges into the sand at his feet. Grath advanced behind the barrage, firing in precise, measured bursts, herding Maul backward. The Sith allowed it, sensing the rhythm of the attack. Every movement of the executioner's body was precise, disciplined, born of centuries of war. When Maul's back met the arena wall, Grath charged. His power sword blazed with red energy as he swung. The first strike came down like a thunderclap. Maul met it with his lightsaber. Sparks and energy flared where the blades collided, the power field screaming in protest. Grath pushed forward, strength overwhelming. Maul slid sideways, using his opponent's momentum to deflect the next swing. The air cracked with heat and energy. They circled each other in a deadly dance. Each clash sent shockwaves through the sand. Each movement was a study in mastery, Grath's brute efficiency against Maul's lethal precision. For the first time since arriving in this galaxy, Maul felt challenged. The lightsaber hummed furiously as he parried another attack, but his eyes narrowed. Something was wrong. The weapon's power cell was draining faster than expected. The energy here, the warp, was interfering with the Kyber crystal's resonance. His weapon would not last long. He needed to end it quickly. Grath roared and slammed forward, driving Maul back with a flurry of overhead strikes. The Sith yielded ground deliberately, retreating toward the wall once again. Then, in a blink, he changed tactics. He deactivated one end of his saber. The sudden shift in weapon length threw Grath off balance. His power sword swung into empty air. Maul spun low, bringing his remaining blade across Grath's flank. The weapon sliced through armor plating, scorching a line of molten steel and flesh. Grath staggered, bellowing in pain, but did not fall. Instead, he triggered a control on his armor. A hiss of stimulants filled the air. The executioner's pupils dilated. His breathing quickened. His muscles swelled. His movements became faster, more feral. The pain no longer slowed him, it fueled him. Blood for the Blood God, he screamed, lunging forward in a frenzy. Now it was Maul who retreated, parrying blows that came like hammer strikes. Sparks and blood filled the air. Grath's attacks were less precise but monstrously powerful. Each swing was meant to kill outright. Maul's movements blurred, every parry guided by the Force. His breathing was steady despite the chaos. He had fought Jedi Masters, battled armies, faced death countless times. This was no different, only louder, bloodier, and gloriously primal. Yet Grath's fury carried a terrible momentum. The man's body was burning itself out under the strain of combat drugs, but his strength grew with every wound. The crowd sensed it. The air itself seemed to hum with dark energy. Grath's voice deepened unnaturally as he advanced. His eyes bled. His aura expanded. Khorne was watching. The Blood God's attention had turned fully to the arena, drawn by the violence, the rage, the perfection of slaughter. The executioner was becoming a conduit, a living vessel for the god's power. Maul felt it through the Force, like a storm crashing against his mind. He had seen corruption before, Sith, Dark Jedi, acolytes who lost themselves to power. But this was different. The warp was trying to claim Grath completely. His blows no longer merely struck, they ripped reality, leaving crimson tears of light in their wake. The duel became chaos incarnate. Maul met the storm head-on. The Force and the warp collided, creating shockwaves that split the ground and shattered stone. Each impact threw dust and sparks into the air, turning the battlefield into a haze of blood and fire. Their blades locked once more. Sparks cascaded between their faces. Grath's voice was no longer human, distorted, echoing with an otherworldly timbre. Submit. The Blood God claims all. Maul bared his teeth, yellow eyes blazing. I kneel to no one. He broke the lock, spinning away in a blur. His lightsaber flickered. The power cell was dying. One final chance remained. Maul feinted left, then right, testing Grath's defenses. But the executioner moved with unnatural foresight, guided by his god. Every strike met resistance. So Maul did the unthinkable. He deactivated his weapon completely, standing unarmed before his opponent. The crowd gasped. Grath hesitated, blood dripping from his armor. Surrendering, he mocked. Maul's voice cut through the silence. There is no mercy, only victory. He raised both hands. The Force erupted. Not as lightning, not as telekinesis, but as raw, living hatred. Energy arced from his fingertips, burning crimson instead of blue. The ground cracked, the air screamed, and the executioner was lifted from his feet by invisible fury. Grath roared in agony as the power tore through him, his armor melting. Under the sheer heat of the Force's wrath, the warp screamed in defiance, but Maul's will was absolute. I am Darth Maul, he declared, voice booming across the arena. I am Sith, and I bow to no god. With one final surge, he unleashed everything. The lightning intensified, stripping Grath's flesh from bone. His body convulsed, suspended in a halo of crimson fire. Then, with a sound like thunder tearing heaven apart, he exploded into ash and molten metal. Silence. Thousands stared, unable to comprehend what they had witnessed. Even the gods, perhaps, paused in astonishment. Then, from the crowd, one voice began to chant. Then another. And another. Blood for the Horned One. Skulls for the Sith Lord. The chant spread until the entire arena thundered with it. Maul stood alone amid the smoking ruin, his chest rising slowly. His lightsaber hung at his side, lifeless but victorious. He had killed a champion of the Blood God. He had rejected divine will and triumphed. And now, even the followers of Khorne spoke his name. The galaxy would learn what the gods of chaos were about to discover. That a Sith Lord serves only his own darkness. The battle's aftermath lingered long after the crowd had dispersed. Smoke curled from the charred remains of Executioner Grath, his armor warped and blackened. The smell of ozone and burnt metal still clung to the air like a curse. Maul stood motionless in the center of the arena, the crimson sand scorched to glass around his feet. He had not only defeated a champion of Khorne, he had defied the god himself. Above, from the viewing platform, Lord Vrouse and Apothecary Kordath watched in awed silence. The apothecary's mechanical eye whirred softly as it recorded every detail of Maul's victory. He restrains himself, Kordath said finally, his voice low and analytical. He could have killed Grath sooner. He was measuring the limits of his power. Vrouse grunted uneasily, or perhaps testing the Blood God's patience. Kordath turned to him, his expression unreadable. Either way, the Horned One has exceeded expectations. Below, Maul finally turned his gaze upward, meeting the apothecary's lens from across the arena. There was no bow, no salute, only that cold, silent acknowledgement of dominance. Later, in the Warlord's council chamber, Khordath returned, this time accompanied by towering figures clad in blood-red armor. Their every movement carried the weight of centuries. Their eyes, hidden behind helms shaped like snarling beasts, glowed faintly from within. World Eaters. Chaos Space Marines, demigods of war. Their presence made even the most fanatical cultists fall to their knees. Khordath stepped forward, the massive warriors flanking him like executioners. "You have been summoned," he said. "Your duel with Grath has drawn the attention of my masters, and of their lord, Karnak the Bloodthirsted, Prince of Khorne. He comes here." Maul's yellow eyes gleamed. "A demon prince," he said quietly, tasting the words as though testing their power. "He was once mortal," Khordath continued. "Now, he walks in two worlds. The blood god has blessed him beyond comprehension. And he is curious about you." Maul smirked faintly. Curiosity from a god's servant is a dangerous thing. The apothecary tilted his head. Dangerous? Or inevitable? That night, the sky above Belisar Prime turned crimson as warp storms churned through the upper atmosphere. Lightning danced across the clouds like veins of fire. The air itself seemed to tremble with bloodlust. The cultists gathered once again in the arena, their chants rising in rhythmic frenzy. From the storm above, something vast descended, a shape wrapped in darkness and flame. When it landed, the ground quaked. A creature taller than any space marine, its armor fused with organic muscle and bone, stepped through the settling dust. Horns like massive blades curved from its skull. Its wings, leathery and red as flayed flesh, spread wide before folding neatly behind its colossal frame. Each movement exuded power. Each breath radiated death. The demon prince Karnak had arrived. Lord Vraus and Khordath fell to their knees, their voices trembling as they spoke his name. But Maul did not kneel. He stood before the monstrous being, his expression calm, unbroken. The sight drew murmurs from the gathered cultists, whispers of both fear and awe. Karnak's helm turned toward him. Two eyes burned like suns beneath the shadowed visor. "So," the demon rumbled, his voice carrying like thunder across the cavern. "This is the one who slew my executioner. Smaller than I expected." Maul met his gaze unflinchingly. "Size matters not when the will is absolute." A sound erupted from Karnak's throat, a laugh like grinding metal. "Well spoken, little horned one. You have strength. Pride. I admire that. Tell me." He leaned forward, his massive face inches from Maul's. "What are you?" "I am Sith," Maul replied. "I draw power from the Force. From emotion, from pain, from will. I serve no god." Karnak tilted his head, intrigued. "No god? Yet your power reeks of rage. Of hatred. You speak Khorne's language, even if you deny his name." The demon reached out, his clawed hand large enough to crush a tank. "Show me your weapon." Maul hesitated for the briefest moment, then unclipped his lightsaber and presented it. Karnak examined it carefully, his talons tracing the air above its surface without touching. A blade of light that cauterizes as it kills, curious. Not Mechanicus, not Xenos, alien even to the warp. Like you. He straightened to his full, towering height. "You do not belong here, Sith. Yet perhaps you were meant to." Vraus bowed deeply. "My lord Karnak, the Horned One has proven himself worthy of your attention. His power could serve the blood god well." "Silence," Karnak growled, his voice a sonic quake that sent Vraus sprawling. His burning gaze never left Maul. "No. I would see his worth proven again, in battle." He gestured toward the ceiling, where a projection of orbital holofeeds flickered into view, images of Imperial troop transports descending through the storm. "The Imperium has found you," Karnak said. "Their tempestuous scions come to purge this world. They will strike this complex in 2 days." He leaned forward, his eyes blazing. "You will lead my armies, Horned One. Defend this place. If you triumph, I will offer you a gift beyond imagination." Maul's voice was calm, cold, unwavering. "And if I refuse?" Karnak's grin revealed rows of serrated teeth. "Then I will take your skull for my throne." A pause, then Maul inclined his head slightly. "Then I will accept your challenge." Karnak nodded, satisfied. "Good. Let us see if your defiance can match your arrogance." The demon's wings unfurled with a thunderous crack, casting a shadow over the entire arena. "And should you survive," he added, his voice echoing through every mind present, "we will speak of your transformation, and the butcher's nails will sing in your skull." With that, the demon prince rose into the storm and vanished. The arena fell silent. Vrouse rose shakily to his feet, pale and sweating. "You have no idea what you have agreed to," he hissed. "The Tempestus Scions are the Emperor's finest, soldiers bred for precision and death. They will not break easily." Maul turned toward him, his expression unreadable. "Then I will enjoy breaking them." He looked up through the stone ceiling, as if he could see the stars beyond. His voice dropped to a whisper. "War comes again. Different galaxy, same lesson. Only the strong endure." The sky above Belisar Prime burned red. Warp lightning split the clouds, each crack tearing across the heavens like the veins of an angry god. The ground trembled as drop pods and grave transports screamed through the atmosphere, their hulls glowing from the heat of re-entry. The Imperium had arrived. Deep below, in the blood-soaked tunnels of the cult fortress, Darth Maul stood before a massive hololith projection flickering with tactical schematics. The crimson light cast his face in stark relief, half in shadow, half illuminated like a demon sculpted from rage itself. Around him gathered the champions of chaos, Lord Vrouse, brooding and bitter, 5 world eaters, towering in their crimson armor, and dozens of lesser cult leaders awaiting orders. "The Tempestus Scions strike from above," Vrouse said, his mechanical eye flashing as he gestured to the holomap. "Their insertion teams will enter through these vents and maintenance shafts. They mean to cut our command center off before the main assault." "They expect panic," Maul replied calmly. "They expect you to meet them head-on." His gaze shifted to the cultists around him. "You will do neither." He raised a hand, and the hololith adjusted, showing shifting troop movements, ambush points, and kill zones. "We will draw them deeper, past the first line of tunnels, into the lower chambers. Once they are separated, we close the exits. Then we crush them." The World Eater veteran, Skarn, rumbled approval, his vox grill growling like a beast. "A trap, then. Good. Khorne favors slaughter over retreat." Maul's lip curled slightly. "Favor whatever god you wish, warrior. Just ensure the slaughter is efficient." The plan unfolded with mechanical precision. Cultists hid in alcoves and vents. World Eaters positioned themselves in choke points. The lower tunnels were rigged with crude explosives, enough to bury entire platoons alive. When the Imperial strike came, it came fast. The first grave shafts erupted in blue fire as the Scions descended, their armor gleaming with Imperial insignia. They landed with flawless formation, disciplined, silent, precise. Hellguns blazed, cutting through the first wave of cultists before they even screamed. The Imperials moved like machines, clearing corridors, securing checkpoints, establishing comms. Maul watched from the shadows, unseen. His yellow eyes followed their advance with surgical focus. "Let them believe," he whispered. "Let them think they've won." Then, he gave the signal. Hidden doors burst open. Cultists poured from the walls, screaming prayers to Khorne. Bolters and chainblades clashed against disciplined blastfire. For a moment, the tunnels became chaos incarnate. And through that chaos, Maul moved. He was a phantom in the storm, his lightsaber igniting with its trademark hiss, casting a river of red light through the darkness. Each motion was a blur, every swing, every deflection, a perfect expression of death. Bolter rounds met his blade and detonated mid-air, fragments of shrapnel frozen by telekinetic force. He redirected hellgun fire into their own ranks, each ricochet a precise act of vengeance. To the Imperials, he was no man at all, just a streak of light and shadow cutting through their formation like a scythe through wheat. When the last of the first wave fell, silence reclaimed the corridor. Maul stood among the bodies, his chest rising steadily, unshaken. One survivor, his armor cracked and bleeding, looked up at him in horror. "Which, heretic? Emperor, protect me." Maul's voice was calm, almost pitying. "Your emperor is a corpse on a throne." With a flick of his wrist, the man's neck snapped like dry wood. Elsewhere in the complex, the World Eaters were unleashed. Bolters thundered, chain axes screamed. Their war cries merged with the cultists chanting as the tunnels drowned in blood. Skarn fought beside Maul briefly, his armor splattered with gore. "You fight like us," the Space Marine said. "Ruthless, efficient, but too clean." Maul parried a strike from a surviving Scion, decapitating him mid-sentence. "Efficiency," he replied, "is a weapon." The Scion's body fell at his feet. "And I use it well." Hours passed. The Imperials were driven into the heart of the fortress, the arena itself. There, under the blood-stained sands where champions once fought for gods, the final Imperial survivors formed a desperate defensive ring. Their leader, Captain Rear Valen, stood at the center, armor scorched and cracked, but her eyes clear and defiant. "Hold the line," she ordered, her voice steady despite the screams and smoke around her. "For the Emperor. We do not break." The air trembled as Maul entered the arena alone. His steps were silent, his expression unreadable. The crowd of cultists and Chaos warriors filled the stands, their chanting rising to a fever pitch. "Maul! Maul! Maul!" Even the gods of the warp must have been listening now. "You fight well," Maul said, his voice carrying easily across the sands. "Your Emperor would be proud." Captain Valen spat blood and raised her pistol. "Spare me your false praise, heretic. We die in his service." Maul ignited his lightsaber. The red glow reflected in her eyes. "Then you die for nothing." "Tempestus," she shouted, firing the first shot. "For the Emperor." The volley that followed was blinding. Last fire cut through the air in a wall of energy. Maul moved within it like smoke, deflecting bolts with flawless precision, but even he could not stop them all. A glancing hit burned his shoulder, tearing through fabric and flesh. Pain surged, but pain was power. He extended his hand. The force erupted outward, a shockwave of telekinetic energy that sent sand and shrapnel flying. The front line of Scions were thrown backward, crashing into one another in a tangle of limbs and armor. Maul advanced, his blade a storm of crimson light. Every movement was perfect, every kill surgical. The force guided him, the bloodlust of the crowd fed him. The line of Scions broke, their formation collapsing, but Valen held her ground. She stood firm even as her comrades fell around her. Her pistol emptied, she drew her power sword, its edge humming with imperial sanctity. "Finish it," she growled. Maul approached, his eyes burning with calm intensity. "Your courage is wasted here, but it deserves recognition." She glared up at him. "I need no praise from a monster." "Not praise," Maul corrected softly. "Understanding." Her jaw clenched. Then she charged. For an instant, time seemed to freeze. She swung with desperate precision. Maul sidestepped, turned, and in a single smooth motion, his saber carved a crimson arc through the air. The power sword clattered to the ground. A moment later, her body followed. Silence. The crowd inhaled as one. Then, like a tidal wave, sound returned. Blood for the Horned One. Skulls for the Sith Lord. The chant echoed endlessly, rising through the tunnels, carried even into the warp beyond. From the viewing box above, Kordath watched with calculating fascination. "He is dangerous," he murmured to Vrouse. "Not for his defiance, but for his potential." Vrouse's face was pale. "He does not believe in our gods. He serves only himself." The apothecary's grin was thin and cruel. "Belief is irrelevant. Power is everything." That night, as the fortress quieted and the dead were dragged away, Maul sat alone in his chamber, meditating. The force, wild, untamed, fused now with the echoes of the warp, flowed through him stronger than ever. He could feel the universe itself bending at the edges. And then, the air shifted. The shadows darkened. Karnak the Demon Prince materialized in the corner of the room, his massive form half-wreathed in fire and shadow. "Magnificent," Karnak rumbled. "You slew the Emperor's chosen." The Blood God himself stirred to watch. "You are worthy of his blessing." Maul did not rise. "I am not yours to bless." Karnak's burning eyes narrowed. "Defiance still? After all you have achieved in his name." "I achieved it in mine," Maul said coldly. "Your gods feed on rage and blood. I am rage. I need no god to give me what I already am." For a long moment, the demon said nothing. The air shook with the sound of his restrained fury. Then, to Maul's surprise, Karnak laughed. "Magnificent," he boomed. "You are either a fool, or something truly divine. Perhaps both." He leaned closer, the heat from his body warping the very air. "Very well. Serve alongside me, then. Not as a disciple, but as an ally. We depart this world at dawn. The galaxy burns, and I would have you at my side." Maul considered the offer in silence. The Sith in him knew the value of patience. A demon prince's warband would grant him knowledge, access to the warp, its powers, its secrets. He could learn. Adapt. Conquer. "I accept," he said finally. Karnak nodded, pleased. "Good. But before we leave, remove Rouse. His usefulness has ended. Consider it a final test of loyalty." The demon vanished, leaving only the scent of ash and blood. That night, Maul moved through the fortress unseen. He entered Vrouse's quarters without a sound. The warlord sat behind a desk made of human bones, staring at data slates, unaware of his fate until the door hissed shut. "So," Vrouse said bitterly, reaching for a weapon. The demon tires of me. And you, Horned One, are to be his instrument. Maul's voice was calm. You understand your place well. Vrouse drew a bolt pistol, firing instantly. Maul's lightsaber ignited, the bolt deflecting into the ceiling. Stone rained down. The warlord fired again and again, each round redirected until his weapon clicked empty. When the pistol fell silent, Vrouse drew a power sword. I did not survive 1,000 battles to die easily. You survived, Maul replied, advancing, because none of them were against me. The clash was short and brutal. Sparks filled the chamber. Vrouse fought like a cornered beast, furious, desperate, but Maul was beyond him. Every strike he made was a lesson in futility. With one swift motion, Maul disarmed him. A second later, the lightsaber found his neck. The head hit the desk with a dull thud. Efficiency, Maul murmured. Always efficiency. He turned and walked away without looking back. By dawn, the warband prepared to depart. The Demon Prince's shuttle was a grotesque fusion of flesh and metal, growling like a wounded beast as it awaited takeoff. Karnak stood at its ramp, towering over the Chaos warriors around him. Is it done? He asked. Vrouse is no longer a concern, Maul replied. Good. Karnak gestured toward the shuttle. Then come, Sith. The stars await. And in their wars, perhaps you will find your true place among gods. Maul followed, the crimson light of the twin suns framing his silhouette as he ascended the ramp. The engines roared, and the shuttle rose, leaving the blood-soaked world behind. Through the viewport, the endless void stretched before him, cold, infinite, and waiting. Maul's yellow eyes glowed brighter. Another galaxy, he murmured. Another war. Another empire to break. The Force whispered to him, echoing through the warp itself. A promise of conquest, of vengeance, of destiny. The Sith Lord closed his eyes. He no longer needed to destroy Warhammer 40K. He would rule it.